Well, I want to welcome my listeners back to the podcast, Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. And I'm Linda Prio, your host. And I hope that you listeners have been able to start listening to my podcast where I interviewed a realtor. And she is a realtor who has extra designations and certifications and training to work with seniors. And I did a part one and a part two. And that podcast is more about a traditional real estate transaction, one that I think most of us are more used to or have had experience in our past. But I want you to always remember, no matter whether it's a contractor or a professional or even a realtor, that it is so important to do your homework and interview the person you're working with so that you feel very comfortable in that relationship. And so that's my public service announcement to my listeners is that you would do that. But today we're going to head in a different direction. We're still going to be talking about real estate, but it is something not too new, actually. The first time I heard of this kind of transaction was from my father. And so let's just say it was late 1980s. And he said, maybe I should sell this house as is. And I looked at him with my mindset that, well, shoot, we just went through a real estate transaction and we had to clean our house up, and I have little children, and now I have to keep it clean, and now people are coming at odd times. And so I had that in my line of sight. And so when he was talking about this, I thought, what is he talking about? So they had lived in this home for 30 plus years, and there was work that needed to be done. It wasn't a derelict property of any stretch of the imagination, but there were the furnace, the air conditioner, the large amount of concrete that the driveway that needed to be replaced, uh, flooring and things like that. And I think the cost, my father was weighing the cost of what it would cost to do that. He was not in great health, as opposed to just selling the house as is. And so that was one thought I had when he mentioned that. But in years since then, I can tell you that I've had neighbors who sold their houses. They cleaned them up, they painted them, they put new flooring down, they added new window treatments only to have new owners move in, take all the new window treatments and floorings and repaint the entire house. So I have to tell you that I'm a little confused. I wouldn't know what to do either. And so that's why I have invited Michael Jill QC
Jilikuski.
Husky. I should have asked you that before we started,
That's all
uh,
right.
to be with me today. And Michael has joined the Faster House team, and he is going to help us to understand what this new model, newish, newer model of real estate transaction is all about. Now, Faster House has been offering this kind of real estate transaction since 2002. And at Faster House, you can receive a quick offer on your home. I'm assuming based on comparative homes and what they are worth in your area. And then you get to select the closing time, which is amazing, and no fees. So I've got to find out more about this. The concept of as is sales, a quick offer and quick closing sounds so simple as opposed to staging your home, updating your home, uh, and other real estate commissions, and then waiting for the right seller and the right offer to come. So, Michael, say hello to my listeners today. And then I'm going to put you on the spot right away. I'm going to
I
ask
love them.
you to share some examples of people that you were able to help with this real estate sales model.
Yeah, so first of all, Linda, thank you for having me, one, and to the kind words. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in and hearing my spiel. But to jump into your question, there's two examples that come to mind. The first one, as luck would have it, is something I'm currently working on right now. I'll kind of cue up what's going on because it's, I think, very important to understand what is really going on in that person or that family's life and how that home plays a part in their full circle and their full story. And honestly, for us at Faster House, we think if we aren't solving more than just the issue around the home, then we're really not doing our job, and we're really never going to get to where we want our families or our people to be. Um, so this example would be it's a great little house in Overland. It is a husband and wife divorced situation. So this gentleman, David, his ex-wife, her dementia has escalated. He is still her power of attorney. The rest of Marilyn's family all lives out of state and is fairly disconnected from the situation. So, we've been working with David on what some scenarios could look like. So, um, Marilyn is set. We helped connect him with some folks that work in that memory care space,
Wonderful.
as well as some assisted living locator folks, really just to kind of vet the process. I don't want to give away too much specifics because it's kind of
No.
personal, but more of a
Yes,
top line
agreed.
thing. Um, but anyway, so we were able to kind of help locate her a bed in a memory facility. Um, and then kind of get some of that stuff situated, understand what Medicaid was going to do, what Medicaid wasn't going to be able to do. And part of that was her cash reserves and then the asset dilution to get her to there. So we were able to work with her ex-husband and come up with get to a purchase price and terms that they can agree on, and that's where we can be super flexible um, on the terms. So part of her terms are we need it to be closed by the end of February. So we're going to close in under 3 weeks, which is quick for a real estate transaction. We can go faster, we can go slower, but that's pretty good pace for a real estate transaction. One of the other things that David wanted to see was there's a few items in the house that he just wanted to see go on, live on, right? So we're making arrangements to have movers deliver some of her furniture to the thrift store.
Okay.
Um, so those are opportunities there for us where we were able to help provide more than just our service around the home because we understood there was bigger things that had to get figured out first. Where's his ex-wife going? How's she going to get the care she needs? And how do we use the home to unlock some financial things she needs, also providing that speed, ease, and convenience. And now we're solving multiple layers of problems and putting David in a much better spot to make the decision of what to do with his ex-wife and how to carry on from there.
And I'll stop you right there because if any of my listeners all of a sudden felt like their head spinning, it is because you said Medicaid, you said divorced, you said
Yep.
power of attorney, memory care, and then working through all those things and the necessity of working with the community, working with the husband, working with someone who has memory care. And
Mhm.
that is a complex situation. So, listeners, if you didn't pick up on that, I just wanted to break that down for a minute because not everybody could do that for you. But I know that Faster House spends a lot of time in our industry. Of course, you said Overland, so we're talking about Missouri, which is where
Yep.
we're located. So I know Michael and his team does a lot of networking with other industry professionals. So when these unique situations come up, then they know how to make those connections for you. And so this was just not cut and dry. this was multiple layers and you're already closing in 2 weeks and things are moving forward. So kudos to you guys on that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, and I just want to put this out there just because I think it's important. So we kind of live by this motto of houses can't buy houses, people do. And people go in those homes. So if, again, if we're not correcting or alleviating some of the issues with the person, the house will never make its inroads to where it needs to be. So that's our biggest thing is figuring out how to solve those problems.
And that
And
was a complicated real estate transaction. It
yeah,
wasn't just, hey, here's my house, sell it, give me a
yeah.
price, let's close. Okay.
Hmm.
So I want my listeners to acknowledge that and for you guys to get the credit for that complicated business. So, but it sounds like it went smoothly and that things are moving forward for them, which is great because she's going to get the help she needs.
Yeah.
And
And
you guys,
it'll be good. Second one, this one we're actually working with the owner to put together some sort of a compilation just because the story's so cool. Um, this was another gentleman on my team, Jake. He's been working with this homeowner for 3 years. So this homeowner is already in assisted care,
oh,
but did not want to part with his home for a multitude of reasons. Since that has happened, um, he's lost the ability to speak
oh,
and he's not very tech savvy. So the only way him and Jake could communicate on my team was through handwritten letters. Um, so Jake has been meeting with him for a couple of years, going to his community, talking through the process, everything we do. And they've been, let's, for the lack of a better term, building a friendship while they were negotiating about his house.
okay.
um, as weird as that may sound. Then on top of that, this gentleman was a lawyer. So he only wanted to use a contract that he drafted up.
All right.
He also thought that title companies were not above approach, but they're there to keep everything legal. But he only would close through his bank, who he's banked with for 60 years. So, um, we were willing to accommodate as one-off handwritten contract, set up the bank closing to make arrangements for him to get to the bank to close. Um, and he was honestly so impressed with the process and the follow-up and the time and the patience and the honesty and everything. He actually has now made Jake his power of attorney moving forward.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so they're still on a very um, friendship basis, more pals than just business partners at this point. And it's quite a combination because I think the gentleman is almost 90 and Jake just turned 26 and got engaged. So a very weird, like a combo you wouldn't necessarily see, but those are just the values and things we try and instill in what we do. Uh,
Well,
but
and
yeah.
I think you just uncovered the whole essence of what it's like to work with seniors in real estate. It's
Mhm.
not really cut and dried. Maybe there are some, but certainly you have stories of where there have been extenuating circumstances. And apparently,
Yeah.
this gentleman did not have any family members that he needed to consult. He was his own man. He had mental capacity to do this. He is a
Mhm.
lawyer,
Yeah.
and he drew up new documents after the sale of the house to uh, create this power of attorney relationship because he developed trust
Yeah.
uh, and a friendship with
Yeah.
somebody. So, I feel as if we heard two wins, right?
Oh yeah.
For
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And it's really not unusual, listeners, that folks might go into an assisted living after a health episode and then see if they're healthy enough to move back home. They may not have to sell the home quickly for the cash value.
Mhm.
And so in this particular instance, uh, the sale actually happened after the person admitted into a care community and then
Mhm.
decided to stay there and then realized that now was the time. And yet his health needs really changed too, you know?
Yeah.
So to be able to rock and roll. So
And
we hear fast sales, but I just heard you say that took 3 years.
yeah, and that's the beauty of it. We're solely there to provide unreasonable hospitality, is what we like to say. So we'll go over, everything, and that's where if we can differentiate ourselves, like if it's not right, it's not right. And that's okay. We understand that. But it's through that transparency, that honesty, that trust that we hope we're at least pointing people, if nothing else happens, we're pointing someone in the right direction of where to get the help they need. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And now I'm going to have a moment from our sponsor. So, welcome back, listeners, to the podcast. Michael, the realtor that I had on a couple weeks ago, shared that there are some specific things that emerge as you begin talking to a senior about the sale of their home. And I was wondering if you could talk about that. What are some of the challenges? We've just heard a couple of working with seniors when they're choosing to sell or right size their home. What are some other things you're seeing as well? Maybe some challenges or some emotional attachment, or
yeah,
what are you
the
seeing in your when you work with a senior?
the two biggest things I come across are, one, we talked about it, just the emotional ties to the home itself, and really the belongings that go into it. And then really just the fear of change is quite evidently some of the biggest issues. And it's got to be extremely hard, just to think of myself in that position, having to transition that late in life, and just even how much more of a homebody I've become in just the short time from when I was in college to out of college. So, and so I just see that progressing, and I understand wholeheartedly what those fears and concerns would be. The second biggest thing is usually around the price of the house, and I won't lie on that, because there's, unfortunately, things are very expensive, and it's really frightening too that I've gotten into this, and there's folks that just are, some are very prepared, some are not. Some need very expensive levels of care. And the home, for many, is potentially the largest asset they have, whether that's to free up care or even inheritance for the children, or whatever it looks like for them. Um, so those are like the two biggest issues I see when I speak to seniors, for the most part.
Yes. So the home, the value of the home, we always overinflate, you know. My car's paid for, but it is worth so much to me, and yet the insurance company says, "Oh no, it's only worth this amount of money." And we feel that way about our home too. In your experience, are you seeing that when you said seniors are not prepared? Can you elaborate on that? Is it legally prepared, mentally prepared, physically prepared, or is it also just financial that they are that because of what they owe, maybe they don't
Mhm.
own their home?
So yeah, we run into quite a bit of, and it's usually a bad word, reverse mortgages,
Okay,
where they've had to potentially tie up the equity. And then, when we're approaching a home, there's certain things in ways we have to make it work for ourselves. So it's just sometimes we can't get the math to math,
right.
because of what's been absorbed in pulling money out of that, or pulling equity out of that home. So that can sometimes become a hurdle. Um, and then a lot of times it's can be difficult when we're talking about rehabbing a house. It's a little different than when a traditional agent might just go price per square foot. In an area, we factor in some of that, but what we do is, if you have a house that's built in the 1960s versus a house that's built in 2020, well, that foundation on the house built in the 60s has just been there for longer. That concrete has just been in existence. So there are instances where comps and things in neighborhoods have driven up home values, and it still adds value to your house, don't get me wrong. But when we look at when we're comping the property and the level of repair we're going to need to put in, and then we still have to pay all those commissions and fees and everything on the back end of it when we go to sell that property again. And then we're also trying to forecast what the market will be like in that 3, 4, 5 months from now when we're ready to sell that property again. So
Yes.
when we talk about the value of the property, we walk them through, hey, here's kind of how we got to the number we think the property could be worth after we fix it up. Here's what I think it's worth right now. And then this is where we would need to purchase it within a little bit to make that work. Um, but yeah, that's really for us what we're looking for.
And I appreciate your transparency and honesty because this is something that needs to be said because uh, retiring is expensive. Life is expensive. I know in your world with kids,
Oh
it's
yeah.
all expensive. When you get to be a senior and you're only making X amount of money,
Hmm.
then everything looks expensive, and you're not always able to keep pace. But I feel that when we don't have our eyes wide open on things and realistically plan, that we could find ourselves behind the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is what you're saying sometimes without saying it like I'm saying it, because I know that when I ask, how many seniors own their homes, it's not 100%, it's not what you would expect. And then
Mhm.
everybody has a situation, right? That's
Oh
not
yeah.
a judgment statement. That's just saying, let's open our eyes, let's think this through. I did a podcast on reverse mortgage, so if there's a listener today that wants to go back and pull that forward, I still have a lot of questions about that. My father was trying to figure this out for his benefit and for my mother's benefit, who was probably going to live longer than him, which she did. Uh, and so we talked about whether or not he wanted, if he thought I would buy the house. We talked about reverse mortgage. We've talked about, what we would do when we sold the house. And so we had had numerous conversations, and then all of a sudden I'm plunked into the driver's seat trying to help my mom navigate this. But fortunately, I had heard those words before, and so I was able to move forward. So thank you for being transparent and honest because it's not there's a lot that comes into you guys coming up with that number. Okay.
Hmm.
And obviously you're trying to get them the best number, but you've got stuff on the back end that you're going to have
Yeah.
to do. So, all right. So attachment to the home, the memories, your health, the difficulty if you're not feeling well of navigating a traditional sale. Maybe there's already been a death and now the emotions are high and
Hmm.
engaged, and it's just challenging when you're in grief to think clearly. So it's nice to have professionals who can think and guide for you. Um, but seniors are seeing these ads, that are
Yeah.
stating, "Hey, we're going to sell your home for cash. We're ready to go. Give us a call." What are some of the pros and cons now of selling to a faster house or you can only talk about what it is from your point of view,
Hmm.
but this gives us a good idea of the market.
Yeah, so for us, the pros of going with Faster House would be the speed, efficiency, and hospitality you receive.
Okay.
And I would say the flexibility can be very helpful and attractive to seniors. There's been times where, we've had to offer, and we don't lease back is kind of the way to a term for it, but we're just going to let them stay
Okay.
for that couple of weeks until they're ready for the next move. But we've closed and funded that property. So then they can access some of that capital, whether it's deposit for their new apartment, deposit for the community they're moving to, whatever that allows them to access some of that cash to make the transition more efficiently.
Yeah.
Um, Again, with the terms, that's where since we can be flexible as far as moving or decluttering or paying for this or that. So there's things we can do to help them make that transition super easy. So, then when we talk, there's got to be something that is wrong, right? Because you're telling me, Mike, you're going to give me cash, you're going to pay all my closing costs, you're
Right.
going to close in like 2 weeks, and you'll move all my stuff. Like, okay,
Too
what's
good to
wrong?
be true.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. So that's where we don't hide behind it, we cannot pay retail pricing for the property. And the folks that can use our services have one of two things, and usually a combination: high motivation and some sort of distress on that property, right? So when you kind of put those together, those are the best fits for us. So whether that's just very outdated and it's all cosmetic stuff, or if it's, roof foundation issues, what have you, right? That has really affected the ability to go to market. We also try and walk people through, though, when it comes to the purchase price. There's a difference between your purchase price and your net.
Okay.
And so you might sell your house for $25,000 more than I'm offering, but by the time we take out realtor commissions and closing costs, and then something popped on your occupancy or your home inspection, and
Yes.
you have to install a radon system, removal system, or whatever is happening, or they'll say, hey, you don't have to do it, but I want a $3,000 concession, right? So
Right.
those are all things we don't know. Also, you know, we're getting to an area where properties are on market a little longer. We're right around 40-ish days on market right now on average. So you're going to absorb, you know, probably if you're a senior most of the time, but like you mentioned all the time, the house is paid for. So at least there may not be a mortgage, but there's utilities, there's insurance, there's all those other holding costs that you're going to have during the traditional transaction. So we try and forecast them to, hey, this is where you can sell it, but this is where you're going to walk away with. So for us, it's more of the question then is like, what do we need to be able to make that transition? And then that's when we also have those just they're not easy conversations, but they're truthful conversations of, I mean, within 10 minutes in a house, I can usually tell, hey, guys, I think you need to go this way. Here's four really good real estate agents I know,
Yes.
and that's our job is to just provide that insight and that consultation. Um, and then if things don't work out on the market the way you want, be happy to come back,
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah. No
talk.
harm, no foul.
Yeah.
You weren't ready to receive what I was telling you now,
Yeah.
or maybe something has changed and you're
Mhm.
ready to move this along. And so it's good that you can do that. And I know that Faster House works with all kinds of people. We're talking
Mhm.
to adult children and maybe seniors today, but I know that you probably work with all kinds of folks in all kinds of situations.
Yeah.
You have a methodology for each, and the point is that you meet a need. Okay. Some people have to move quickly. You meet a need. Sometimes people separate. It has to happen, and this is maybe an easier way to do it than to struggle with a slow market, right? You mentioned a term lease back, which I'm familiar with, and it was a short-term lease back. We had to do this with a home that we sold. Our new home wasn't ready, so
Mhm.
the buyer, we were able to lease our home from the buyer for a month or so until we could move into our new home, which really was a benefit
Yeah.
because when you have three kids, you're going to have a huge apartment.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you have to have a three-bedroom apartment, which is hardly even available. It costs a fortune. Believe me, we save money on that lease back. So I heard you say
Yeah.
that if there's a time lag, that you would consider a short-term lease back.
Yeah, and it's I just threw that example out there. It's we would just really need to run that scenario. And
Right.
if we can make it work and it needs to be 2 or 3 months, like that's okay. We're not, but we got to evaluate just kind of the whole situation and what's going on and how it would work. But it could be a couple weeks, it could be a couple months if it needed to be. So it's kind of our job to help figure that out.
And so when I call Faster House and I want to have that conversation, kind of walk me through that. And I know you've mentioned a little bit, but just like you said within a few questions that you kind of got an idea of whether this is going to be a good property for you guys as an acquisition team, but
Mhm.
also that you really feel like this is a client that you could work with in a situation.
Yeah.
So kind of just explain the process to me.
Yeah, so when you call in, if you're just gonna call, whether if you have my direct cell, obviously you'll get me. If not, if you just call to the office, we have two inbound lead managers. So really their job is just to get to understand the what's going on, right? So it's simple things, address, and then they'll talk a little bit about condition and things like that. Just hear what's going on. Um, and then from there, once they've gotten just the basic things, they'll kind of figure out what's a good time to speak with one of the acquisitions team members. And then we'll set up a call. And it's a 15-20 minute call where we'll just get a little deeper, more questions actually centered around the individual than the house. Um, because again, like I mentioned, we're really looking for those big ticket items. So we can get through that. It's more about, hey, so and so, tell me about what's going on. What are you
Yes.
feeling? Where's your head at with this? Or like, where can I help? Right. So we're trying to pull out the needs, right? And then from there, we can kind of decipher if it's something that we can help with. And we had just talked about instances really where people needed help that was more in a stressful situation. We've helped folks in the exact opposite too. So it's really that's where we're diving in. I had two instances where um money was not the motivator. They just said, Mike, we built our retirement home. We love fly fishing. We're good. If you need to tell me you're just gonna write me a check and we can have this done in 2 weeks, where do I sign?
Yeah.
Right. So we got them to that number. We got them where they needed to be. A beautiful ranch home. I know not everybody's from Missouri, but in Ladue, so a very well area, a very sought after area in this state and city. And so that was we were just helping people get to that end goal
Yeah.
quickly. It just wasn't necessarily centered around a health issue or a stress issue or anything. So I don't want you to think we only help people that are in rough or need. We're here to help anybody, and those are the fun ones. That one was great. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We
Yes.
got done. We all had a. I think I had a glass of bourbon with the homeowner, and his wife poured a glass of wine, and they're like, "We're retired. Let's go." I'm like,
That's
"Okay."
awesome. That's
So
aw-
there's all sorts of folks that we can help, and it's our job to find out if our services can really help. So
so it at best, some people say, well, just call us and then we'll give you an offer within 24 hours or something like
don't
that. But
do
that's
that.
just a preliminary offer, and then you have
Don't do that. So I would say if that is happening, because it does, if and I didn't finish. I got sidetracked talking about the fun stuff, but
Sorry.
so after our initial conversation and we go through, we're gonna set up an appointment. So myself, or if it just we can't make time works, another acquisition manager, somebody on our team, will come meet the homeowner or power of attorney or whoever, and we'll spend 45 minutes to 3 hours at the home, right? So again, we're going that at that point, we're actually going to take pictures, go through everything, more questions, looking for tags on water heaters, AC compressors, foundation issues we see, stuff like that. And then we're going to spend a lot of time talking again with that, with the decision makers, the homeowners, whoever's there. And again, it's also on their timeline. I mean, I've been to appointments where somebody's like, hey, I gotta be back at work in 30 minutes. I do my thing, we talk later on the phone. But if somebody's not willing to come out and look at your property, anybody can make up a number over the phone. And don't try and not fall victim to that, because unfortunately people get preyed upon. Um,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
not fair. So yeah.
Yeah, that's why you want to do your homework, is what I said in the beginning. And that's with anything. If it's a lawyer, you need to do your homework. If it's a
Yeah.
financial planner, people have. You can't go to a lawyer who's good at real estate and expect him to be the best at estates.
Yeah.
Everybody has a specialty or experience, and it's really about your relationship with that person. And it was really fun to hear that your associate had really made such a
Oh,
connection with
yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy. I bet
Yeah.
he's getting a lot out. I bet they're both getting a lot out of
Yeah.
that relationships. So, should somebody try to make their house look better or not? Are you going to be the leader and the guide in that? Because,
Yeah, so that for what we do, I don't even see stuff anymore when I walk into a house. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I'm looking at age of things, condition, foundations, roofs, soffits, gutters, driveways. Does it look like there's settling? Has there already been repair? The stuff. I appreciate stuff because it's something this person's collected or it's part of them. So we're not by no means trying to discard your treasures. That's not it at
oh,
all.
I get it. I get that you're the professional coming into
Yeah,
the room.
it's just like we see what we're trying to been trained to see. That are those big ticket items where we can determine the value of that property and assess what would need to be repaired or updated to maximize that's the value of that property. So cleaning out your stuff, no. And then and a lot for a lot of folks, that's the speed. That's part of the convenience. We buy all of our properties as is and sell her to make no repairs. So we write non-contingent cash offers. I could do a whole nother podcast on what to look out for in off-market real estate and folks that are portraying cash buyers but are really never going to close on your property. And tying you up in things that are just never going to get you to that closing table and ultimately to where you want to be. So,
That would
um,
be hard. Just because you guys are acquisition managers as well, so now you've acquired the property. So just because I know that listeners might be thinking my train of thought, then are you able to sell the house in the future? Or do
yeah,
you?
so it's good you bring that up. So part of the um, benefit of Faster House is we have a full team. So, right, there's 5 guys like me who go out and work with homeowners on purchasing their property. Then once we move forward, we have 2 transaction coordinators. So Lori and Tammy, absolute sweethearts. Their entire job is to then put together your closing packets, right? So they're going to outline the documentation, the dates, the things you need. They're going to transfer the utilities over to us. They're going to go through all the stuff. So when we say you're hands off, like, yes, you're going to have to sign some more things at closing, but we will pay for a mobile notary to come to your new apartment and sign from the luxury of your living room, right? That's part of the things you get by going in this direction.
Yes,
Again, you have to understand you're giving up a little purchase price, right?
correct.
So that's
Correct.
part of the trade-off. But then, yeah, so they would get you through the transaction process. at that point, our teams would take over construction. We have two project managers. We also have another LLC in-house, STL Renovations. So they're going to spearhead the transformation of the home. And then we then list it on the traditional market. So then we have Magnolia Real Estate,
Right.
is our in-house traditional brokerage here in St. Charles. And then we have a dedicated woman on our team, Ms. Stegemeyer, who then lists all of our properties that are ready to go back on the market.
And is Faster House only in the St. Louis market?
Yes, we are only in Missouri. I should say Missouri. So we'll buy, within an hour and a half, 2 hours of the city of St. Louis, surrounding counties for those folks who are around Lake of the Ozarks and Branson and some of that a little further out here and there we have. But we don't go out of state because it's not who we are. Our owners are local O'Fallon, St. Louis people. We're right here in O'Fallon. We've been doing it in this for 20 something years, and we just would rather give back to our community than try and start cold calling people in Texas trying to buy their houses. That's just not what we want to do. So
Yes, yes. So everybody has a different business model. We get that. I thank you again for just
yeah,
being so transparent and helping us to understand the ease of getting some information and then potentially the also the simplicity of the process and then understanding, of course, that um, that making that process simple, there's some give and take on both ends, as there are
yeah,
in any transaction that's going to occur. And of course, the goal is what do you want to get out of it? And so if you feel like your needs are met, like fly fishing, just give me my number. I'm
yeah,
out.
yeah,
I think, oh, how what a great thing that would be. I think that many families probably could benefit from a transaction like this when there's always some sort of contention at the end of
mhm,
someone's life. To stop some of that, that'd be huge. Let you deal with that, so that I can preserve my relationships with brothers and sisters if need be. So that is wonderful to learn more about that model. I asked you when I invited you onto the podcast if you had a caregiving tip that you wanted to share with our listeners today.
So being that we're rehabbing houses, I do, but I was gonna stick to stuff in the house that I know. So one is you get older, have somebody come in and try and level out the thresholds. So when you go from like tile to carpet, trying
Yes,
to get those as seamless as possible, for the fear of tripping and falling.
yes.
The other one, well, there's two. I'm gonna give two more, so I'm gonna do three. Is that
All
bad?
right, that's okay.
Okay. So the second one is when you are getting any type of updates done to your home, you should try and investigate the LLC that is performing said work.
Okay.
One for insurance purposes, the second one, and I only know this because like foundation work, a lot of foundation companies come with a lifetime warranty
All right.
that is sometimes transferable to the structure, sometimes only the homeowner. So make sure you do your due diligence there, but look into the LLC because if they've created, they're on LLC 3, um, potentially those previous warranties were tied to an LLC that's no longer in business.
Okay.
And they
Important
will
to
not they will not honor their lifetime warranty on that foundation.
know. Okay.
Um, The last one pertains around vacant properties.
Okay.
So be cautious if the property goes vacant and you do not notify your insurance provider. If there's a total loss of that property, there's potential that they may not have to pay out as it was currently not occupied. So, um, little tidbits to look out for.
Absolutely. And it could happen easily.
Yeah.
Like your gentleman who went into the assisted living. Obviously, probably nobody was living in that home. doesn't mean you don't have to take care of it or maintain it, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but also just that to know that something could happen. Well,
Yeah.
Michael, you've been so knowledgeable. I appreciate what you brought to the table today to help my listeners understand about this process of getting a different kind. What do you call this kind of transaction? Is there a specific real estate term that we should know or not?
You would just say off market or
Okay.
cash transaction, so
Okay,
yeah.
well, good. So an off market, and what was the other term?
Just a cash purchase
Okay.
of your property. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. And you heard that Faster House works in the Missouri market. And so I'm going to put your contact information, which is, tell us your contact information.
So you can reach me at Michael, so Michael at fasterhouse, all one word.com, or just call me direct. It's 314-757-2097, and that's my direct cell. So
Okay, so listeners, I'm going to have that in the show notes for you. And I do thank you for listening today. And join me again next time on Aging in Place Strategies and Answers.
thank you.